Hello and welcome to my channel Qubit Educational Services. In this session we are going to solve the engineering mathematics section of GATE XE and this is the year 2020. Okay, as most of you might already be knowing, this section consists of 11 questions, out of which the first 7 carry 1 mark each and the remaining 4 carry 2 marks each. Okay, so let us start with our first question. Question number 1 is based on linear algebra system of linear equations, and typically there will always be one question based on this. Let A be a 4/3 non-zero matrix and let B be a 4/1 column vector. Then Ax equal to B has a solution for every B, no solution for some B, a solution only when B is equal to 0, and a solution if B and the columns of A form a linearly independent set. Okay, now to solve this question, we are first going to consider the augmented matrix. Okay, if the coefficient matrix is of the order 4/3 and if the right hand side of the system consists of a matrix whose order is 4/1, clearly the matrix of unknowns, that is the matrix X, is going to be of the order 3 cross 1, so there will be 3 unknowns. Okay, 3 unknowns in the system. This follows from the rules of matrix multiplication. So then we will form the augmented matrix. The first 3 columns of this augmented matrix belong to A. It is a 4/3 matrix and the last column belongs to B. Okay. Now when is any system of linear equations consistent? It is consistent or possesses at least one solution when the rank of the coefficient matrix is equal to rank of the augmented matrix. Okay, now observe this. The rank of A is going to be less than or equal to 3, obviously, isn't it? Because the row rank and the column rank both are same and the minimum among the two is 3. Okay, so the rank of A can be 3 or less than 3. Okay, which means it is possible to make the last row of A to be a row which consists of all zeros by performing respective row transformations. For example, using A11, A21, A31 and A41, all of them can be made 0. Then using A22, we can make A32 and A42 0. Yes, and then using A33, A43 can be made 0. I mean, of course these elements will keep on changing, but nonetheless we will get a situation where the first 3 elements and the 4th row will be zeros. Okay, so then it boils down to this element B4, which has now got transformed to some other element B4 prime. Okay, now for consistency the ranks should be same. Yes, so if B4 prime is equal to 0, the system will be consistent, but if B4 prime is not equal to 0, then rank of the augmented matrix will not be equal to rank of the coefficient matrix. Okay, and therefore if B4 prime is not 0, the system will have no solution or it will be inconsistent, which means there can be some matrices or some column vectors B for which the system possesses no solution, hence option B. Okay. Question 2 is based on the Newton-Raphson method or numerical methods, but also sequences. Question number 2. Let x0, x1, x2 and so on be the sequence generated by the Newton-Raphson method applied to the function f of x, which is x cubed minus 2x plus 2 with the initial guess or x0 equal to 1. Then the sequence converges to 0, becomes unbounded, converges to a root of f of x, or does not converge at all. Okay, now to solve this question we should know the formula that we use to find the next guess. Okay, which is xn plus 1 is given by xn minus f of xn upon f dash of xn. Okay, now what is f of x? X cubed minus 2x plus 2, that will sit here. In the denominator of the second term, we have got the derivative of f of x, which is 3x squared minus 2, right? So f prime x n will sit here. Now if we substitute x not equal to 1, which is given in the problem, then we are going to get x1, okay, which will be 1 minus 1 cubed minus 2 into 1 plus 2, so 1 divided by 3 into 1 minus 2, so x1 will be 0, okay. So x0 is 1, x1 is 0. Let's now go to x2. For x2, we will again use the same formula, xn plus 1, but this time n is equal to 1. Okay, so to find x2, we will make use of x1, which is already 0. So substitute 0 everywhere. 0 minus f of 0 is 2. Okay, and f dash of 0 is minus 2, isn't it? So 0 minus 2 upon minus 2, so this will be 1. So what do you now see? X naught was 1, x1 is 0, and x2 is again 1. Yes, so if we find x3, it is going to be 0 again, isn't it? Now let us see whether 1 and 0 are any one of them or both of them are roots. Okay, clearly 0 is not a root because there is constant term. And what about 1? Is f of 1 equal to 0? No, this is not equal to 0. Okay, see now, because we are getting a sequence which consists of only two terms, 1 0 1 0 1 0 1 0 alternately, clearly this cannot converge to 0. See, and it is also not unbounded, because the values are less than or equal to 1 and greater than or equal to 0. It also doesn't converge to a root of f of x, so it does not converge. Okay, now the option becomes unbounded is before it does not converge, so you will be tempted to mark option B, but there is a difference between convergence and boundedness. If you know it, then you can very easily solve this problem. The correct option is D. Okay. Next, question 3 is based on ordinary differential equations of higher order. Let zt be the solution of the initial value problem d2z by dt squared equal to bz, with z at 0 being 0 and dz by dt at 0 being 1. Okay, and this is defined for all t's which are greater than or equal to 0. If the planar curve parameterized by t having x coordinate z of t and y coordinate dz by dt is closed, then necessarily b positive, b negative, b 0, b is a non-zero rational number. Okay, now we very well know the theory of linear differential equations of higher order with constant coefficients. Okay, and this is also homogeneous because there is no right hand side here. Okay, so this is a second order linear ordinary differential equation with constant coefficients, and it is homogeneous. Okay, so what is the corresponding auxiliary equation? M squared minus b equal to 0. Okay, now if it is a closed parameterized curve, the curve that should immediately come to your mind is a circle. Yes. Okay, what does it mean? It means z of t must include trigonometric functions sine and or cosine. Now this conclusion is important because otherwise what you will get is exponential function or something like x into e to the power mx and so on. Okay, now these are never capable of producing closed curves if represented as x and y coordinates. Okay, I mean the curve and the function and its derivative, which means negative b must be positive. Okay, we know, I mean if we have equation of this kind, m squared plus 4 equal to 0, then the roots are complex. Okay, the roots are imaginary, plus or minus 2i, and therefore b, which in this case is 4, minus b, has to be positive, so b has to be less than 0, hence option B. Okay, now let us verify whether our answer is correct. Assume that z of t is in the form sine of root of minus b into t. Okay, so what will the derivative of this be? the derivative will be cos of root of minus b times t into root of minus b. What is dz by dt? Dz by dt at t equal to 0 is 1. It is given in the problem, okay, which implies that root of minus b is 1. So b is minus 1. Okay, and is z of 0 equal to 0? Yes. Where is it? Yeah, if you substitute t equal to 0, then z of 0 is 0 because sine 0 is 0. Okay, yes. So option B, we have not only arrived at the answer, but we have also checked our answer by considering a situation. Okay, that's question 3. Question 4 is based on infinite series as well as complex variables. Let z be a complex number, then the series summation as n goes from 0 to infinity z to the power 2n upon 2n factorial is. Okay, option A converges for all z, option B converges for mod z less than or equal to 1 and diverges for mod z greater than 1, option C converges for 0 and diverges for any other 0, option D converges for mod z less than 1 and diverges for mod z greater than or equal to 1. Okay, now at first what I did was I substituted z equal to 1 and observed what happened. Okay, if we substitute z equal to 1, then what are we going to get? We are going to get the infinite series of reciprocals of factorials of all even numbers. Okay, so if n is 0, then 1 upon 0 factorial 1. If n is 1, then 1 upon 2 factorial 1 upon 2. If n is 2, then it is going to be 1 upon 4 factorial, which is 1 upon 24 and so on. Okay, now this is going to be definitely less than 1 upon e. Why? Because 1 upon e is given by 1 plus this is definitely less than e. Okay, sorry, my mistake. It shouldn't be 1, shouldn't have been 1 upon it is e. Okay, because e is equal to 1 plus 1 plus 1 upon 2 factorial plus 1 upon 3 factorial and so on. Okay, now what are the terms that are missing here? Factorials of all odd numbers. Okay, 1 is missing, 1 upon 3 factorial is missing and so on. Okay, so this is definitely less than e. So at z equal to 1, we are getting a convergent series. Note that all terms are positive, as well as we have ensured that the sum is less than e. Okay, so at z equal to 1, the series is convergent, which means C and D cannot be right. Okay, because 1 is included in the list of those numbers where the series is said to diverge. Okay, so it is either A or B. Okay, now to decide whether it is A or B, I opted a more conventional approach by substituting z squared as w. Okay, so our infinite series S will be summation as n running from 0 to infinity w to the power n. So only the numerator will change and 2n factorial will remain as it is. Okay, now apply the formula which you might already be knowing to find the radius of convergence of this infinite series. Okay, so we are interested in finding the limit as n tends to infinity of mod of a n plus 1 upon a n, where a n is the coefficient of w to the power n. Okay, so what is it? A n will be 1 upon 2n factorial, and therefore a n plus 1 will be 1 upon 2 times bracket n plus 1 factorial. Okay, yes. So because these factorials are appearing in the denominator, for a n plus 1 we will have 1 upon 2n plus 1 bracket factorial, and a n is in the denominator of the denominator, isn't it? So it will be simply 2n factorial. Simplify. Use the reduction formula for factorials to cancel 2n factorial. So you'll get 2n plus 1 into 2n plus 2 in the denominator. So clearly this limit is going to be 0. Okay. So if the limit is 0, then r will be 1 upon 0 or infinity. Yes. which means it converges for every w, and because we are dealing with complex numbers, it is going to converge for every z squared or every z. Okay, so it is option A. Okay, see that if that means by substituting z equal to 1, we did not get the answer, but we definitely eliminated two of the options. Okay, we eliminated C and D. So if you don't have any time left, and if you just quickly substitute what is happening at z equal to 1, well, that will actually help you eliminate two of the options, and then you will be required to select either A or B only if you don't have time. Okay, if you have time, then you can directly apply this formula and get your answer. Let's now talk about question 5, which is based on vector calculus. Let v bar be ax I cap minus bz j cap plus cy k cap, and this is a vector field whose curl is 0. Okay, or null vector, because curl is a vector quantity. Then necessarily a equal to b equal to c, a equal to minus b equal to c, b equal to c, or b equal to minus c. Now we all know how to find the curl. Okay, curl is del cross v bar. So in the third row we should be writing the components of v bar, which are ax, negative bz and cy. Okay, so it will be I cap into dabba by y of cy minus dabba by z of minus b. Okay, so it is going to be c plus b. Yes, minus j cap into dabba by x of cy 0 minus dabba by z of ax 0 plus k cap into dabba by x of minus bz 0 minus dabba by of x. Okay, so no matter what values a, b and c have, j and k components will always be 0. Okay, so let us now go to I component, which is c minus b, as we have determined b plus c. Okay, now if the curl is 0, then b plus c must be 0. That means b has to be equal to minus c, and this function will be, this function's curl will always be a null vector irrespective of the value of a. Okay, yes, so that is D, a very simple question. Question number 6, based on calculus of single variable functions. Let f be a continuous function on the real line such that for any x, integral 0 to x squared f of t dt is equal to x squared into 1 plus x squared, then f of 2s. Okay, so remember, here x is present in the upper limit as a function, okay, x squared. Step 1, what I did was I substituted x squared as y. So we could now write the given integral as integral f from 0 to y as y plus y squared. Okay, because since y is x squared. Yes. Now do you observe that because we have a 0 here, the value of the integral at the lower limit will always going to be 0. Yes. Okay, so this allows us to take the derivatives of y and y squared and put them back here. Okay, by the fundamental theorem of integral calculus. So what will f of t be? F of t will be derivative of y1 and derivative of y squared is 2y, so we must write 2t here. So if we integrate 1 plus 2t, okay, with limits 0 and y, we are going to get y plus y squared, and there we have got our function. Okay, so the problem wants us to find f of 2, substitute t equal to 2, f of 2 will be 5. Okay, so by this clever little substitution we have got our answer. That's question 6. Let's go to question 7, which is based on extreme values of two variable functions. The number of points at which the function f, which is x squared by 2 plus y to the power 4 by 4 minus y squared by 2, has local minima is. Okay, first let us apply the first derivative test. Dabba f by dabba x 0, which is x. Okay, dabba f by dabba y equal to 0, which will be y cube minus y. Yes. Okay, now if we solve the equation y cube minus y equal to 0, then we will get three roots: 0, 1 and minus 1, isn't it? So there are 3 points now: 0, 0, 0, 1 and 0, minus 1. Okay, now to decide whether the function has local minimum or local maximum or something else like saddle point, we need to investigate and apply the second derivative test. Okay, di by 2 f by di by x squared 1, di by 2 f by di by y di by x 0, because this doesn't contain any y, and di by 2 f by di by y squared will be 3y squared minus 1. Okay, so what will the Hessian be? Hessian will be rt minus s squared, or the determinant RTSS. Yes. Okay, so this will be r into t, so 1 into 3y squared minus 1 minus s squared, which is anyway 0. So it is 3y squared minus 1. Okay, now if we are interested in finding the local minimum, we need to make sure that the Hessian is positive. Okay, now where is Hessian positive? Will it be positive when y is 0? No. Okay, so it will be positive when y is either 1 or minus 1. So there are 2 points where the function is attaining local minimum. Okay, now this is a numerical answer type question, so you have to use your on-screen keypad to enter the answer as 2. That is question 7. So this completes the section consisting of 1 mark questions. Let us go to 2 marks questions. Let us now go to question 8, the first among the 2 marks questions, which is based on differential calculus and infinite series. Let f of t be a real valued differentiable function on the open interval -1 to 1, such that f of 0 is 0 and mod of df by dt is less than 1 for all values of t in the range 0 and 1. Okay, then the series summation f of 0.5 to the power n as n goes from 0 to infinity converges but not absolutely, is unbounded, converges absolutely, is bounded but doesn't converge. Okay, now to solve this question, what I have done is I have taken a different function f of t, which is the identity function. Okay, so I have taken f of t as t. Now does it satisfy the requirement f of 0 equal to 0? Yes, it clearly does. Okay, but now if you look at the coefficient of t, it is 1, so df by dt for our function will always be 1. Yes, and what is 1? Look at the condition. Mod of df by dt is always less than 1. Okay, so this can be the maximum possible rate at which the function can increase. Okay, so all values of f of t that we are going to consider will grow at a rate which will be lesser in magnitude than 1. That is given in the problem. Okay, so if we now determine the summation, or if we now determine the value of this infinite series by taking f of t as t, what are we going to get? We are going to get the upper bound on the sum that we are looking for, isn't it? So let us see. It is summation n going from 0 to infinity 1 into 0.5 raised to n, because it is f of 0.5 raised to n, and this being an identity function, it has to be 0.5 raised to n. Okay, so what is it? N starts from 0, so 1, then 1 upon 2, then 1 upon 4 and so on. Now this is a geometric progression. Yes, first term 1, common ratio 2. If you determine its value, it will be 2. See, now if we consider the situation where df by dt is -1, we still would have got a convergent infinite series. Okay, the sum would have converged to negative 2. Okay, so what do you observe? You observe that even if we even if we take the absolute values, okay, that means this one, even then the sum is going to converge. Yes. Okay, so even if some of the terms are negative, it is okay, the sum is converging, but more importantly it is converging absolutely, and therefore we will select option C. Okay, I mean, if you know the tests for convergence of series which have both positive and negative terms, if it converges absolutely, it has to converge conditionally. Okay, so option C for question 8. Now let us go to question 9, which is based on probability distributions. Let x be a random variable with PDF given by f of t, which is e to the power minus t for t greater than or equal to 0, and it's 0 for t less than 0. Okay. Let a and b be two real numbers such that 0 less than a less than b, then the conditional probability p that x is less than or equal to b given x greater than or equal to a depends only on b minus a, b a plus b. Okay, first we recall the definition of conditional probability. Okay, in the numerator we have the probability of intersection of the two events. Yes. Okay, now if this is the real number line, 0 is somewhere here, a has to be somewhere here, and b has to be somewhere. Okay, what is the event that they want? X less than or equal to b, that means this event. Okay, x greater than or equal to a is this event. So their intersection has to be the event when x lies between a and b. Yes, and in the denominator we always take the conditional event, or a conditional the probability of this event. Okay, so it is probability that x is greater than or equal to a. We already know the definition of PDF, so we use it now. First we'll determine the numerator, which will be integral a to b e to the power minus t dt. In the denominator we simply have probability that x is greater than or equal to a, so it will be the definite integral with t running from a to infinity of the same function e to the power minus t dt. Okay, now we all know e to the power minus t's integral is minus 1 times e to the power minus t. Okay, so if you substitute the limits, numerator will be minus 1 into e to the power minus b minus e to the power minus a. Same thing in the denominator, and e to the power minus infinity is 0. We all know that. Okay, minus e to the power minus a. Now you can cancel the minus sign, you will end up getting this. Okay, now first you divide negative e to the power minus a by negative e to the power minus a, so that you get 1. Okay, then this negative sign will stay, and then this negative a, when it goes to the numerator, will become positive. Okay, so it will be e to the power minus b plus a. Take a minus sign common, so it will be b minus a. So the only thing that is variable is b minus a, so we can treat this to be a single term. Okay, so the conditional probability is 1 minus e to the power minus bracket b minus a, which depends only on b minus a and not on the individual values of a and b. So option. Okay, so this tests whether you have understood conditional probability, continuous random variables, and the properties of the function e to the power minus t. Okay, that is question 9. Let us go to the second last question. Now this question is also from linear algebra. Question number 10. Let A be a 3 by 3 matrix such that A squared is equal to A. Then it is necessary that option A is identity or null, B, determinant of A to the power 4 is either 0 or 1, rank of A 3, A has one imaginary eigenvalue. Okay, see, now instead of eliminating the options, we can start with the equation that we have. Okay, A squared equal to A. Now recall the property of the determinants. If determinant of A into B is what we are going to find, then it is actually equal to product of the determinants. This property is very interesting. Okay, even in one of previous year's GATE papers, there is a question based on this particular property of determinants. Okay, so determinant of A into B is determinant of A into determinant of B, and because A squared is equal to A, both must have the same determinants, which gives us determinant of A squared equal to determinant of A, very much like this quadratic equation, x squared equal to x. So this equation has two roots, 0 and 1. So determinant of A can be 0 or it can be 1. And again, by using the same property, we can claim that determinant of A to the power 4 can either be 0 or 1. So option B. Okay, see, now we actually can rule out options A and D as well, but I mean, see, in matrix products have many unusual properties which their numbers equivalents do not have, right? Yes. So question 10, option B. Let us now go to the last question, which is again based on probability but not on probability distributions. Question number 11. Players A and B take turns to throw a fair die with 6 faces and the die is fair. If A is the first player to throw, then the probability of B being the first one to get a success, round off to 2 decimal places. Okay. See, now before we write down the required probability, let us split it into smaller parts. Okay. Do we know the probability that B gets 6 in the first shot? Yes. A is the first player to throw, so we have to write 5 by 6 first, which means A doesn't get 6. Okay. And then if B gets 6 in the first shot, the probability will be 5 upon 6 into 1 upon 6, because these two events are independent of each other. Okay. Now suppose B gets 6 in the second shot. Okay. Now what does this mean? This means none of them have got a 6 in the first shot. So that part of the probability will be 5 upon 6 into 5 upon 6. And again this part will come here. A again doesn't get a 6 and then B gets 6 with probability 1 upon 6. Okay. Now let us go to the third situation where B gets 6 in the third shot. Okay, so all previous 5 attempts made by A and B alternately have gone in vain. None of them has produced 6. So it will be 5 by 6 to the power 5, and eventually during the 6th throw B gets 6, 1 up, yeah, so the probability is 1 upon 6. So what is the required probability? The required probability has to be the addition of these events. Yes. Okay, so this is clearly a geometric series with first term 5 by 6 and common ratio 5 upon 6 raised to 2 if you take 1 upon 6 common. Okay, so take it common. First term is 5 by 6, common ratio is 5 by 6 squared. Okay, so A is 5 upon 6 and the common ratio R is 25 upon 36. Okay, yes, so if you simplify it and use the formula, more importantly, use the formula for S infinity of a GP, which is A upon 1 minus R, A into 1 upon 1 minus R, you will get 5 upon 11 or 0.454. Correct up to, or round off to 2 decimal places, so you should write 0.45. Okay. Yes, so we have now solved all 11 questions from GATE 2020 XE Engineering Mathematics. Thank you.